If we grow the way that we started, the company will not look like the way we want it to look. I doubt we're a $500 million company today. But look, the game's not over. We got a lot of football left to play.
That's awesome, man.
And a brand is an extension of people who work there. For me, like, we've always been active. You know, like I said earlier, fitness is a part of the routine. It's got to be. Every day is a dogfight, and you got to show up and earn it. It's a battle, right? Like,
I couldn't agree more.
Thing that I'm not cool with is somebody who says, I've been so busy, man, I just don't have time. That's bullshit. You know, 20 minutes at a hotel gym, anybody in the world has time for that. You know, I don't care if you're white, black, gay, straight, fat, skinny, old, young. Like, if you are the best person for the job, we're going to put you in that job.
Jimmy, welcome to the show, brother. Honored to have you, man.
Ryan, it's great to be here, man. This is a long time coming. We've been hanging on Instagram for years now, so it's good to connect.
Good to connect, man. I'm honored to have you. First question, I have to ask you this, is why coffee? Why go into this industry that's been around for decades and you guys come in and say, this is what we want to disrupt?
For sure, dude. And we certainly didn't invent bottled coffee, right? And I think any entrepreneur needs to answer two questions. Why will you succeed at first? And why will you succeed once others copy you? And for us, back in 2015, Starbucks had a 90% share of the category, 92%. And it's just coffee with milk and sugar, 300 calories, 46 grams of sugar per bottle. And my brothers and I, we were retired student athletes in college, and we didn't want to drink that. We needed something that woke us up, and we weren't doing energy drinks either. So we brewed coffee, strong coffee, 2 cups of coffee in every bottle, 10 grams of protein. We were sort of meatheads. We put our protein in our coffee together, and we added MCT oil, to zero sugar. Everything was sweetened with stevia or monk fruit, and it worked. It gave us energy, tasted good. And we looked at this and said, nobody in the coffee industry is doing this. And it's a big category. If we could get 10% share from Starbucks, I mean, today that's over a $500 million opportunity in revenue. And I think that was the answer to our first question, right? Why will you succeed at first? Our product is substantially differentiated. Why will you succeed once others copy you is a tougher problem to answer. And I used to say that our team is our barrier to entry, just execution in stores at the store level. And then really what it's come down to is authenticity. The culture has become positive energy. Our impact is measured by removing sugar from America's diet. And the brand that we're building based on this culture is not replicable. Starbucks can't hire an R&D team to go create what Super Coffee has created intangibly,
Exactly. And take me back to 2016, because I think this story is incredible. I mean, we're over 7 years into this for you guys, and you were like, hey, we're going to sell this to friends and people we know on college campuses. What was the reception like then? You guys were just like bottling this for yourselves, and I know you went around and you had some other friends or maybe teammates. What was their reception at the time? Were they like, no, bro, like I just want an energy drink? Or were they like, oh, this is a really neat idea?
Yeah, dude, I think it was cool and unique and novel, right? Like nothing back then. None of us were entrepreneurs. We weren't listening to podcasts like this. We were student athletes. We'd show up and we'd watch whatever NFL game was on that night, and we would just hang out. So like the idea that one of us was starting something was novel and unique and cool. The idea that it was low sugar and actually worked, like I think that was key. Like the efficacy was there. So if people actually felt a tangible lift from a better for you thing. So that was powerful. Caffeine is addictive, which is powerful. And then once we got into retail, we got into a couple Whole Foods markets that first year of business, and we basically treated it like farmers markets. We were there every day pouring samples. Product didn't taste great. The packaging was terrible. But because we were there hawking the product, I think people felt either they were inspired by us or they felt badly for us just out there pushing this shitty product. So much so that they're like, we'll buy it to support the mission.
Love it. And you played at Colgate, right?
Yeah, I played football at Colgate. Yes, sir.
And so you start this company with your brothers, right? 2 other brothers. What's that dynamic like? Like, do you guys, I'm sure you all were athletes in some various fashion. How does that carry over into the business that you guys have built today? Like that athletic, competitive spirit, how does that carry into what Super Coffee is today?
For sure, man. I think it all feeds each other. I think that the fitness component, my brothers and I are still very active. We'll compete in races. We just got into distance running, which sucks. Like running used to be a punishment as an athlete, and now we're doing it for fun, voluntarily. But that piece is a very important part of our days and our weeks. Like there's 20 minutes of movement in my morning routine, no matter what. And I think that's what drives us. The more we compete with each other, the more we train, the better we operate at work. And that competitive edge is very real. This is business is an infinite game. There's no scoreboard, there's no shot clock. It's not like we have to beat Starbucks to win the game. I think there can be many winners in this, but it does drive us. And I think sports have taught us a ton of invaluable lessons. Like you're going to lose games. How do you bounce back from that? We all play team sports, so there's no individual effort here. It's like, how do we win as a team? And so, dude, simple, basic stuff that you learned in Little League, like you are only as strong as your weakest link. Those are truths, and that we learned all that through sport, through fitness.
Amazing. And, you hear a lot people talk about starting businesses with friends, with family, and they say, oh, don't do it. Sometimes it's too close. Clearly you did it with your brothers. How was that dynamic? Like, how did you guys step into your role of being like, hey, I'm going to take CEO, I'm going to take COO, I'm going to do this R&D part of this operation. How did you guys sort through that battle?
Yeah, for the first year and a half, it was all hands on deck. We took turns making products, printing invoices, making deliveries. We were all sort of utility players. One day we were sweeping the floor at the factory, and the next day you were pitching an investor together. And then as the business got bigger, you understood what departments look like and what division of labor looks like. And at a mature company like a Starbucks or a Coca-Cola, you have a sales team, and that's a very important aspect. You have an operations department, the people that create the product and get it to the stores through the logistics network. You have a marketing team that complements that. And in a startup, you have a finance function that's usually responsible for raising money. And once we decided on those three big things, like our personalities kind of lent us to these. And my brothers and I were best friends. We're super close in age, but we're very different. Jake, the middle brother, is like the happy-go-lucky sales guy. He'll sell ice to an Eskimo. And so he did that. I'm uncomfortable coercing somebody into doing something that they don't want to do, right? But I was sort of always been like the leader of the brothers, and I think that's my rank as the oldest brother. And I took this role on of investor relations and finance. And then Jordan actually came up with the idea of Super Coffee. He's our youngest brother. He's the innovator, the tinkerer, the dreamer. So he runs operations. He brings the product to life from an idea in his head to a shelf in the store. And I can't do what Jordan does. Jordan can't do what Jake does. Maybe he thinks he can. But like we all complement each other's skill sets, and I think we were very fortunate to have that.
Super fortunate. I mean, sometimes you see clashes or egos, and it sounds like you guys have kind of squashed that, and you each have your own lane in your area of greatness that you operate in, which is huge. I want to bring up something. I read a story from 2019 about you guys, and I think it was during a time you said, hey, in 2019, you guys were starting to hit some pretty positive momentum with Super Coffee, and you had I think someone referred to it as like the bro or in the locker room. Like you had this bro culture in the locker room. And so you brought in this individual and said, hey, we kind of need to sort this out. What was that like? Because for a lot of companies that could be a moment that just kills the culture. But for you guys, it seems like it was like, hey, let's take a refresh, maybe reset here and build an even better culture.
Dude, for sure. So I studied philosophy in college, and back in 2018, 2019, I saw on LinkedIn that one of my philosophy professors, he was an ethics professor, he had left the university and started an ethics consulting agency. And ethical issues could be like abortion-related things. It could be AI-related things. It could be how do you treat your employees, and this guy was super smart. Part of the reason I studied philosophy is because the professors were so damn smart. I just wanted to be around them. So I hit him up. I was like, hey, Reed, let's chat, man. Like we built this awesome team. We're 20 full-time employees. A lot of our teammates look like us. They are our college teammates. They are white males in their 20s, and that was all by association. I think back then we had probably 5 women on a team of 20. a couple people of color, a couple minority groups on a team of 20, but we were getting ready to grow quickly. And we said, if we grow the way that we started, the company will not look like the way we want it to look, right? We will not have equal representation in different departments. We will not have different levels of feedback, and we'll continue to hire people who look and think and act like us. And I think we did it, like we set clear guardrails for what we expect from people. Like in everybody's job interview, I say, this is not a 9-to-5 job. This is not something that you're going to come here and get weekends off, and it wasn't a threat. It was just setting the tone of like what was expected. And I think when you're very clear about those values, you recruit or attract people who are down with that, and rather than being turned off by that, they're inspired by that. So by bringing on this ethics consultant, we added some intentionality to that hard driving culture. And it wasn't all about winning. It wasn't all about who can sell the most coffee. It was about building a well-rounded team. And I think by establishing those ethical sort of guidelines, we call it an ethics statement, it allowed us to sort of navigate some of these growing pains as we built out the team to over 100 full time.
That's incredible, man. And I'm sure that brings so much diversity in terms of ideas, new perspectives on different things as you guys launch new products or enter new markets. It's incredible to have that culture, and it's amazing to see you guys grow at that level and be able to have that, right? So kudos to you.
Totally. And look, I think a lot of it is Wallwood, or virtue signaling, especially in 2020 when all these social movements came out. And I think as CEOs and startup founders, you're under a spotlight. You have to navigate that thoughtfully, but you can't just do stuff to appeal to what's popular and what's trending. I think I have a relatively old school approach, like the best player plays. I don't care if you're white, black, gay, straight, fat, skinny, old, young. Like if you are the best person for the job, we're going to put you in that job. And I think the qualifier there is we need to look at people from all walks of life for every job we hire for, and then make a choice. Because if we're hiring a sales rep and we look at 5 white guys, guess who's getting the job? A white guy. Right. So I think having those diversity qualifiers in the hiring process has been critical to ensuring we're looking at all people from all backgrounds.
It's incredible. I couldn't agree more, man. I wanna quickly touch on Shark Tank. I think a lot of people have either known you guys or seen you on Shark Tank or didn't even know that you were on Shark Tank. And I think it was 2018, right?
Yes.
So 2018, you guys go on Shark Tank. First, what was that experience like? Like, I'm sure you guys went in, you were nervous, or were you guys just like, hey, we're gonna do our thing? What was it like?
Yeah, dude, we were definitely nervous, but it was one of those things. It was a force function that forced us to prepare. I think my brothers and I, we weren't great students, and as entrepreneurs, you're pretty intuitive and spontaneous. And like, there was pitches where I would walk into an investor meeting and just like, no deck, no nothing, just do what you and I are doing right now, and I mean, that works when you're confident. That works when you understand your numbers and faith in things. Shark Tank forced us to prepare and know everything cold. We built a deck, we wrote the scripts, we repped it again and again in all kinds of mock presentations with our existing investors, potential investors. So that really forced us to establish a new muscle of becoming prepared to the game. And when we walked in, we could have blacked out up there, yet the word still would have come out because we were so ready. So that was helpful. I think it was very humbling for those who didn't see the episode. We didn't even get an offer from any of the sharks, and at one point, Barbara was like, boys, I can't get this flavor off my mouth. Like, I want to take my pen and scrape my tongue. And I was like, oh my God, we're going out of business the moment this thing aired. But so a lot of them passed because of the flavor. It was sweetened with stevia, and mainstream America has some aversions to stevia, especially back then. I think stevia technology has improved so much lately. But the thing that investors fail to realize is like, you can improve the flavor. We improve our formulas every 6 months, and they did not give us credit for our ability to do that. So by the time the episode aired, we had all new formulas, all new flavors, all of that. So look, man, it was cool. It was humbling, and it was inspiring, right? Like, we felt like we lost the national championship on television, and then we got right back to work the day after that thing went live.
Love it. Now, did you guys have like some people call it like the Shark Tank effect. Like after it aired, all of a sudden you get this boost of traffic of people being like, hey, I'm super interested. Let me check this out for myself and see if the taste has improved from what Barbara said or anything like that. Or was it kind of just like, people just recognize the brand?
Yep. So we've always been mostly a retail business in stores, but 15 to 20% of our business happens online. So the day that it aired on ABC, we saw a nice spike on Amazon. I call it 1 month worth of sales in one day. So that was awesome. And we were anticipating that, that's what people told us. So we loaded it in. But what we did consider is every few months we'll wake up, even today, 6 years later, we'll wake up and see a spike on Amazon sales. And we're like, oh, Shark Tank must have re-aired on CNBC last night, Wow. So the re-airs have been great. And then at retail, it is what you make it. Like we'll put it in buyer presentations. When it makes sense, we'll put a sign that says "as seen on Shark Tank" in stores. People still like that. They're sort of impressed by that. Yeah.
Awesome. And then that led to other investors starting to become involved and interested in the brand. And I know, was it 2019? A-Rod and J-Lo became investors. I think they were probably consumers of the brand before they even invested. And they were just like, hey, this product's incredible. We're interested. What was that like? And how did that kind of come about? And how has that relationship been?
Totally, man. It's funny. Just this week, I got a board consent from our lawyers that is separating the LLC that J-Lo and A-Rod invested in. Obviously, they split up a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But now she's back with Ben Affleck. So, but long story short, we grew up Yankee fans. My brother Jake wore number 13 because of Alex Rodriguez, which is super cool. So, one of our angel investors, I guess a venture capitalist in LA, knew one of A-Rod's business partners, put us in touch. This was actually 2020. Got on a Zoom call with them, flew out to meet them, which was unbelievable. We're at this Italian villa in Beverly Hills, and J-Lo's sitting at the table in a sweatpants and a cami. A-Rod's there in a full suit and tie on a Sunday in his freaking living room. And we're just like, oh my God, this is awesome. And it was a meaningful investment, like a multi-million-dollar investment from two of the biggest stars in the world. I think they're both at points in their career where they don't want to make money for other people, right? They don't want their name, image, and likeness to be used for endorsement deals. They want to start brands and they want to own brands. And you saw it with A-Rod buying the Timberwolves. J-Lo launched J-Lo Beauty. So it was super humbling for them to come in. And they're sad. A-Rod doesn't want to be remembered as a baseball player. He wants to be remembered as a businessman billionaire. And he's built in that.
That's awesome, man. And I'm sure that's kind of a full circle moment, right? Hero that you grew up watching and then now kind of a part of the company in a significant way. That's incredible. So kudos to you guys for getting that.
Thanks, man. It's cool. They so the Spurs, I live in Austin now, and the San Antonio Spurs played at Moody Center, which is the new UT Austin basketball stadium. And they played the Timberwolves. And A-Rod came into town. So I took my girlfriend and her parents to the game. And I was texting with A-Rod before the game. I was like, yo, can we come down courtside and say hello? I think it'd be pretty cool. So he said yes. I would go down to courtside and dab up A-Rod. And my girlfriend's dad is like, wow, this is pretty sweet.
This guy's cool. Yeah.
There's definitely some perks to knowing guys like that.
That's awesome. That's it. So 2021, you guys come in, obviously you're seeing incredible momentum at this point. You're seeing huge momentum in the keto space, low sugar space, and we'll talk about some of those changes. Obviously coming through maybe pandemic. I don't know if you guys saw a spike or not with people being at home, maybe wanting better options instead of going through drive-through. But you guys get over $100 million in a Series C. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So now you get this valuation of over $500 million with a company. Some people see that and they're like, oh my gosh, these three brothers, they must be just rolling around in the dough. They're they must be blowing money everywhere. They have this ridiculously high valued company. What does that mean to you in terms of, cool, we have this great company, but for you guys, it's no, this is just the beginning. We feel like we're just picking up momentum versus, oh no, I'm just going to retire off of that. and we're the three owners who now have a $500 million company. Can you give people perspective on that?
Dude, totally. It's such a good question and something we think about. So a couple of things. The evaluation is what you're worth on paper, right? And as a private company, there is no market for your stock. You can't go to E-Trade and sell your shares and go buy a house, right? Like that's not a thing. So to this day, I have more debt on my credit cards than I do in my checking account. You know, like my salary is $100,000. I've never sold any stock in Super Coffee. And that's the way we like it. You know, we're betting on ourselves. We're betting on the business. Don't get me wrong, dude. We live great lifestyles. There's not much that I couldn't do. Like, obviously, I'm not flying on private jets or even first class, but I don't need to do that. You know, we come from humble beginnings. Like we have really good lives down here in Austin. And I think it is tough because people will see that and they tell themselves a story like, oh, the brothers are rich or the brothers are investing now. Let me pitch them as investors. And it's a battle, right? Like, today, I'll say this, like, I'm not afraid to say this, like, I doubt we're a $500 million company today, mainly because what happened in the macro economy over the last 2 years. But look, the game's not over, right? We're in the third quarter we got a lot of football left to play. So I think there is some insecurity in knowing that like every day is a dogfight and you got to show up and earn it. And if we do execute at 500 million or more, anywhere near that number, it will be a life-changing outcome for me and my brothers. But another thing I'm transparent about is we've raised so much money over the years. Like Jake Jordan and I are 3 co-founders of this thing. And we own less than 5% each, right? Like you when you raise money, you're basically selling parts of the company to all these investors. You're issuing new shares. So your ownership gets diluted down, and 5% of 500 million is still a life-changing amount of money, but it's not like we're going to be 100 millionaires starting a VC fund after this.
Right. Thank you for giving that perspective, because I think a lot of people miss that. They just see this big number on paper and they're like, oh my gosh. One of the mentors of mine once told me, he goes, listen, success has weight. And when you guys have the level of success that you guys have had and you're bringing on these investors, it brings a whole nother level of weight sort of on your guys' shoulders that for some people could bury them. And for some people, that's kind of like when they take the foot off the pedal. You know what I mean? They're like, all right, cool. We got investment money. Let's just go do it. How do you keep that fire between yourself, your brothers, and your team? Like, how do you reignite that fire and say like, no, this is just the third quarter. We have a long football game left to go. This isn't time to just sit back, relax, and be like, great, we're in all these stores. We need to go forward. How do you do that? How do you keep that fire?
Yeah, dude, it's a great call. And you have to constantly reinvent yourself. Like I said earlier, like we were known as the best brand execution company in the industry. When I say execution, it's like going in stores, building displays, getting more space than you deserve. And there's no way around that other than showing up and doing the work. But today, when you're in 50 states and over 60,000 stores, you can't do that. You can't show up everywhere. You know, like you can't physically service that. So I think, how do you take that same aggressive approach and vertically integrate it? So like, instead of going to a store manager, we're going to a regional manager who might be responsible for 100 stores. You know, instead of stocking the shelves ourselves, we're incentivizing our distributors to do it with us and for us, right? And I think getting smarter on that execution is key. I think that you're certainly going to weed out people who aren't up for that fight, you know. And I think what's interesting about this game is every year there are companies like us who have a big fundraising round. Our year was 2021. Last year was Liquid Death. You know, this year might be an Olipop or a Poppy. And when a brand raises like that, they get the attention, they get the hype, they have the money to go spend on big sales teams and marketing programs and fancy salaries. So you'll always, like, people will kind of jump to the next brand once they see a better opportunity. So we definitely had some of that, but our core group is here and ready to fight and ready to make this thing happen. We're shifting gears this year rather than focusing on explosive growth to running a more sustainable, profitable business, which it's a whole philosophy shift. You know, it's no longer sell as much super coffee as possible. It's sell as much profitable super coffee as possible. And we're trying to teach the sales team a new muscle on how we do that.
Nice. That's smart. That's a smart way to pivot and just shift perspective. Not easy, but Definitely smart way to go. What's kind of the motto or the vision in the company culture, right? You guys do so many incredible things. One of the things, I just looked at your website and I think it's up over 20 million pounds of sugar that you guys have eliminated from the diet. So first off, thank you. That's incredible. And kudos to you guys for doing that. Is that like a core part of who you guys are, and like internally everyone buys into, hey, this is what we're doing? And if so, what are some of the other things that like internally you guys buy into?
Dude, for sure. It's a core piece of who we are. We say we mass produce positive energy, and mass produce is a play on a factory of like spitting out hundreds of millions of bottles. And positive energy is removing sugar, adding caffeine, making people feel good. But it's also what we put out into the world. You know, I think culture is not just what you put out, it's also what you tolerate, right? So taking a stand against something from a product perspective, our stance is against sugar. You and I were going back and forth on some of these sugar videos. I've just been showing literally like how much 46 grams of sugar looks like in a glass bottle of Starbucks. And it is startling. That is almost twice as much as the daily recommended value for an adult male. So we do believe that added sugar and excess sugar is one of our country's biggest problems that's not talked about nearly enough. I know you know that, and I know you've built a career around that. But as long as the big sugar companies are making billions of dollars every year, I don't think that's changing anytime soon. The way I believe we navigate that is not by punishing big sugar, but by having smaller brands taste good and be better for you, right? Like if Super Coffee tasted bad, we don't have any reason to exist in the mainstream. You know, maybe we do well in Erewhon and a couple Whole Foods regions for people who are willing to sacrifice flavor for health. But I think if you want to break through in 7-Eleven in Bentonville, Arkansas, like that shit better taste like a milkshake if it's going to have 0 sugar and only 70 calories in it.
I think that's such a critical point, because so many people just think, oh, it's just easy to make something that's better for you. But on a mass scale, to get something that actually tastes good, that people will go, oh, the alternative is this bottled Frappuccino or whatever it is that has 46 grams of sugar or more, and this tastes phenomenal. For them to that switching cost needs to be pretty damn good. And I think that's one thing you guys have done an excellent job at, is like, I don't know, how many flavors do you guys have at this point? It's got to be.
We have too many. We have like 13 flavors, so we got to reel that shit in.
So you have a lot of flavors, but you got something for. It doesn't matter if you like birthday cake flavor, vanilla, more chocolate. Like you kind of have all these different flavors for people's coffee preferences, to try and meet them where they're at. Hey, listen, it's going to be very, very hard to taste as sweet, and it probably even shouldn't taste as sweet as something with 50 grams of sugar, but it's going to taste better than black coffee or something just with normal traditional stevia that you would make at home. We're going to make it taste amazing, and it's going to have functional benefits. And that's kind of what you guys have doubled down on.
Yeah, dude, totally. And I think the flavor is key, and we do our best to taste like that, but still you see it, people say, oh, this has a fake sugar aftertaste, or this, I feel that the monk fruit or the stevia leaves this bitter taste in my mouth. And I think that is a reality of using natural sweeteners that are 0 sugar, 0 calorie. So it's definitely progress. There's definitely more progress to be made there, and we're working on that pretty much every year.
For sure. And you guys, I think from an R&D perspective, you guys are always rolling out new stuff. You also have creamers, right? So what are some things, like if you were to look at, hey, if I could wave my magic wand and build the ultimate portfolio, we have like our ready to drink coffees, we have creamers. Is there anything else that you would add into that mix?
Yeah, I think getting nuanced and segmented in the ready to drink portfolio. When you think of bottled coffee at a gas station, you got the glass Starbucks Frappuccinos, you got the 15-ounce Java Monster cans, you might have some 8-ounce La Colombe lattes, Black Rifles in an 11-ounce can now. You kind of have this wide variety of formats, bottles, cans, functions. To me, a Starbucks Frappuccino is a sweet and indulgent latte for a sweet treat. Nothing functional, not going to give you energy, right? And then you have a Java Monster, which is coffee plus energy. So that might be that coffee flavor, but with an energy boost. So I think living there, that's a $5 billion category. And when you play to different need states and pack types and channels, like convenience versus grocery, we have a lot of innovation to do. and a lot of sort of focus to get to, right? I think having 13 flavors of the same bottle is not the right strategy, but maybe launching Super Coffee Extra into a 15-ounce can for the convenience customer opens up an incremental market for us. So I think over the next 12 to 24 months, you'll probably see us get more narrow within the RTD coffee space and continue to grow the creamers. Creamers have been a great business for us.
Smart. It's fantastic. Now, what are your thoughts on, I've been seeing a huge rise in like functional, like more, you guys are obviously a functional beverage, but even doubling down on that more, like you guys have protein inside of that, but even talking about like adaptogens, things to help with cognitive function, maybe things that aren't as stimulants, like things, alternatives to caffeine. Have you guys thought about that, like doubling down on some of those areas?
Yeah, so we are going to launch that Super Coffee Extra products, 15-ounce can, so that's got 200 milligrams of caffeine, 0 added sugar, 10 grams of protein, but it's got, for the first time, we're adding B vitamins, we're adding ginseng, we're adding stuff like that. That's pretty recognizable. We're not going the full ashwagandha, kava root, and I think there's efficacy to all of those things, but from a mainstream adoption perspective, it's that there's still needs to be a lot of education done around nootropics and adaptogens and things like that. So even, dude, when we first launched, we said on the front of every bottle, it said Super Coffee, protein plus MCT oil. And the number one question we get, people would be like, what the hell is MTC oil? Dude, that's the secret ingredient, right? Like, that's what makes you feel great. Like, that's what makes it super. And then once I realized that 90% of America doesn't know nor care about this expensive ingredient that we were adding, we changed our labels to say Super Coffee, positive energy. Now, we still add MCT oil, and we have a little keto logo on the back of every bottle, because for people who look for that stuff, that's a no-brainer. They know what to look for, they know where it is, et cetera. But it's not something that deserves real estate on the front of the bottle. And I do think that anything that is sort of too fringe in terms of functional, medicinal, nootropic won't have that mainstream adoption.
Agreed, 100%. Now, what are you seeing in delivery form? Obviously, you said you're going bigger. Do you ever see yourself going into do people in the coffee category like shots, like an espresso type of little quick shot? Is that a category that has potential growth?
Yeah, dude, good question. So Starbucks has those little 6-ounce cans, like Starbucks double shot. That's probably as low as we'll go. 5 Hour Energy, I think, is in a 2.5 or 3-ounce little shot at the cash register. That doesn't taste good. That's truly just an energy functional thing, grab and go at the register. So there's not a big market for that type of product in bottled coffee right now. But I think the 6-ounce can of espresso serves a different function, may attract a different customer than our 12-ounce bottle or our 15-ounce energy can. For sure.
Awesome, man. Well, I want to pivot real quick and talk a little bit about personal stuff, and then we'll jump into talking about low sugar keto, kind of the changes that have been going on there. But there was something you just posted up recently with your girlfriend. You're running this race, and I love that. Like, I think it's the most important thing. One, for people who have businesses in general that are in the health and wellness space, to kind of be representative of that. I think that's super important from trust and authority in the brand. But also you just kind of showcasing like your personal life, like showing like, hey, you're competing with your girlfriend. You beat her by 10 seconds this time, but she usually beats you. Like I love that kind of like fun play on things. But how is that important for you as like a CEO and running a company to show that? I think a lot of people are afraid to show their personal life, or afraid to show, hey, this is how I'm using Super Coffee, or I'm using some of our products in my day-to-day life. How important is that to you? And has that always been something that you focused on?
Dude, awesome question. I think that it is part of the lifestyle, right? And a brand is an extension of people who work there. And for me, like, we've always been active. Like I said earlier, fitness is a part of the routine. It's got to be. So I think showing up, doing high energy things and showing it is not only authentic, but sort of brand building at the same time. And what's cool about that race is Super Coffee has been a sponsor of that race for the last 3 years. So like, it makes sense for us to be there. The people who are competing in this triathlon are the people who seek our products. And it's just something that I'm passionate about. I like to compete. And then, yeah, my girlfriend, Allison, man, it's not like, yes, we race together for 70 minutes on race day. And we're not even together, right? The men's wave goes first and the women's wave goes like 15, 20 minutes later, which is even crazier how close we come in that race. Like I literally beat her this race because in the second transition, I had bungee laces in my running sneakers and she took the time to double knot hers. Like that was the delta. But the benefit of this is, one, we're both on the same page. Fitness is important to us. And two, we kind of bond, not over suffering, but over training, right? Like race day is a beauty pageant. What's brutal is 5 days a week, swimming, biking, running for months leading up to it. Like cold, rainy Saturday morning, you don't want to go for a 5-mile run. Getting into a pool on Monday before work, like is the worst part of my week. But doing that with her creates a super special bond that is I think unique and I mean, something that I'm super grateful for.
It's incredible, man. I think it's a testament to who you are and a testament to the brand, because I think so many people miss that mark. I think so many people just try and either go above and beyond and try and shove product in people's faces. I've never gotten that from you ever, but I think it's also, you have the other end of these companies that are huge companies, but they're the people who are running them have zero care of health and fitness. They're eating like junk. They're not even eating their own product or consuming their own product. They're just running the business. And I think that comes through, whether they think it doesn't or not. I think it will come through eventually. And for you guys, I think you guys being involved and into fitness and into health comes through as just a part of the great brand you guys have built. So huge kudos.
Dude, no, I appreciate it. And I think, like I said, those two things are the same. It wouldn't make sense if we launched a salad dressing company, or something that was not high energy and active and out there. So I think brands reflect the people who work there.
Two other questions before we jump into low sugar and keto is, what does your day-to-day look like? Obviously, you've been training. Your training is very different now than it was when you were playing football. So how does that work in? And then what is like a day-to-day look like in the life of someone who's running a $500 million company?
Yeah, dude. So first thing I'll say is I'm super inconsistent, right? So I'm not the guy that's going to come on here and say, alarm goes off at 4:30, I'm meditating at 4:45, I'm in the cold tub at 5. I do all of these things. Like I have a cold tub at my house. I got the red light therapy. I got a little gym set up in the garage. And I think a couple non-negotiables, like my girlfriend and I usually wake up same time every day, 5:30, 6 a.m. We'll make the bed together, which is fun. Like that's a great start to the day. I try and grab 20 minutes of fitness, whether that's hopping on the assault bike for a little spin, hitting the TRX in the garage, nothing crazy. I'm not back squatting. I'm not benching. I'm not doing that. Rarely, like unless I'm training for something, rarely am I waking up and doing a track workout or a run. So that movement is important. And if I'm exhausted, I'll go stretch. I'll go stretch. I'll roll out my foot with a lacrosse ball. Like I'll do something to feel like I'm awake. Some days I'll sit in front of red light, make a cup of coffee. I drink black coffee in the morning, not super coffee. Sort of fast. I guess I intermittent fast until like 11:30 every day. I'm usually at the office by 7:30. No 2 days are the same. It's a combination of meetings, calls, some travel. If I'm with investors or distributors, like tonight I have a 10 p.m. flight to Tulsa, Oklahoma to meet with our distributor tomorrow morning. And yeah, I think when I'm on the road, fitness is important too. Like the thing that I'm not cool with is somebody who says, I've been so busy, man, I just don't have time, right? I don't have time for it. Like that's bullshit. Go to bed earlier, wake up earlier, do whatever you have to do. But 20 minutes at a hotel gym, anybody in the world has time for that. It's if whether or not you make that time. And any hotel gym is going to have dumbbells up to 50 pounds. I'll have a couple treadmills. Like you can get creative, right? You don't need to do an Olympic lifting session. Like you can get in there and sweat, you can stretch, feel good. And then just from a diet perspective, I try to avoid carbs. Right now I'm in keto, which is rare for me. Like I'm like 8 days into a strict keto diet. I'll do that once or twice a year to kind of reset and feel good mentally. And then bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock. So it's a good night usually. And usually by that point I'm exhausted.
I love it, man. It's super important. And then last question before we jump into, we'll talk more about keto and stuff is, What is your ultimate goal? Like, is the ultimate goal an exit at some point? How have you kind of navigated that thought with pending market conditions where we just got slapped with something over the last 3 years that no one in the world expected? Now all of a sudden we're having these crazy market conditions. What's your ultimate goal for Super Coffee?
Yeah, I think because we raised so much money, those investors expect to make their money back and hopefully a lot more someday. There's two possible outcomes for that to happen: is a transaction to either a strategic acquirer, private equity fund like a financial sponsor, or an IPO. And given that we outsource our manufacturing and we outsource our distribution, an IPO doesn't really make sense because we don't get leverage in that situation, right? Like, we're still paying distributors, we're still paying factories. I think a strategic exit to one of the big brands we're all familiar with, like Keurig, Dr. Pepper, Coca-Cola, a Nestle, might make sense because that's where you get synergies. That's where you get buying power from some of the largest companies in the world. That's where you get distribution reach that you can't get on your own, or manufacturing leverage that is far cheaper than what we have today. And I think that we're probably 2 years out from being ready for that. We have some work to do. We're still not a profitable business. We're improving that pretty dramatically year over year. We have to get back to growth in some core channels. Our brand does really well in the grocery channel. We have a lot of opportunity in the convenience channel. So I think next 2 years is probably the right time to start entertaining those conversations. And it's not like we're going to go seek a buyer. I think once we achieve some of these milestones, it checks a lot of boxes for these strategic acquirers who we have relationships with today. And then, at that point, they'll be 10 years in, man. That's a freaking career in my book.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And I have all the confidence in the world that you guys are going to do that and more. I think you guys have built an incredible, incredible company. Quick question your creamer is liquid currently, right?
Yeah, it's liquid in a carton.
Have you guys ever thought of making it a powdered creamer?
Dude, it's a great question. I think we've thought about it. We haven't really explored it. What's your thought there? Is that do you see a lot of use in powdered creamers?
So there's a very big company who Quest Nutrition at one point before they sold for $1 billion had a tub of it was coconut oil powder at the time. They were doing significant business with that product alone. And people were using it as a creamer, but it wasn't even marketed or positioned as a creamer. It was literally a coconut oil powder. And one, higher margin, easier to ship, less weight, just overall better from a profitability standpoint. They cut that entire business because on a macro scale for them, their core is protein bars. And like when you're at $1 billion, it's just a different level of operation. So if something's doing 10, 20, 30 million, that's peanuts to them. So they're like, meh. But for you guys, I was like, shipping, and I know most of your business is retail, but even from a direct to consumer standpoint, having sachets or having something that is more powdered, increased margin, could be an easy add-on product. I don't know, just something that could be interesting.
Dude, it's a great thought. We think about instant super coffee, like stick packs too, that people can use.
Yep.
But it's a good push. And the trouble with our carton creamers is they explode in the mail. It's not like you're going to send a half gallon of milk to somebody through Amazon. Right. So that's definitely been a barrier. That's mainly just a grocery product. So look, if we do that, we'll launch it exclusively on ketogenic.com, baby. Let's go.
Let's do it. That's awesome, man. Well, let's jump into, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and we can chat about this. We've seen this pivot over the last, I'd say 2-3 years from like hardcore keto consumer. Now we're starting to see more, I would call it carb conscious, sugar conscious, low sugar, sugar-free bubble. Have you guys seen that impact your guys' business, or are you seeing buyer behavior like where people were like diehard keto, maybe not so much, and now they're quote unquote identifying more as like, hey, I'm just more sugar conscious at this point, but your product obviously fits both categories. So have you guys seen that at all?
Yeah, dude, it's a good question. I think for us, like we try to separate from the ketogenic diet. Like I think in 2018, 2019, our messaging was a lot more around keto. That was a lot of low hanging fruit. And if you look at Google Trends, keto peaked in January of 2019, has slowly been fading. And then to your point, sugar-free, low sugar, zero sugar is all up and to the right. I think the pandemic probably accelerated that for a lot of people who are looking to get healthier. This whole performance energy category, like Celsius and Ghost, and C4 and Alani Nu, that's all sugar-free, better for you. Celsius markets themselves as like a metabolism boosting energy burner or calorie burner. So I think that has given a rise to low sugar. I think keto has always had this weird barrier with the mainstream of like, wait, I'm supposed to eat fat to get skinny? That doesn't make sense to me. Right. If I eat fat, I'm going to get fat. And my girlfriend, who's the best athlete I know, like she only eats low-fat yogurt because she doesn't want to put on weight, or people who think butter makes them fat when really it's the bread that they're putting the butter on that gives them issues. So I think that's a tricky concept that's been so ingrained to American culture over the last 50 years that has been a tough to break. And it's a lot, dude. Like I said, I'm in keto right now, and it's like I'm taking shots of olive oil, like I'm doing barbaric things just to kind of fuel the ketosis. And I think most people aren't willing to do that. I don't know. What do you think? What are you seeing from your side?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot on this. I think the keto market just got blown out from a lot of good apples, but sadly a lot of bad apples who just said, hey, eat whatever you want, blah. And there's just, what happens is when there's a lot of confusion, people go back into their safe ball and they do nothing. So you have people that were saying, hey, you have to do keto this way. Hey, you have to do therapeutic keto this way. And then you have people on one end that are like, you can't eat a vegetable. You have to eat carnivore and bull testicles. And then you got people on the other end that are like, you need to be purely vegan, but still be low carb. And it's just, people are overwhelmed. They're confused. And at the core of it, I think still stands a point, which is most important for everyone, is that ketosis is a metabolic state in which your body is primarily running on fat and ketones as fuel over carbohydrates and glucose. That doesn't mean 24/7, 365. That means primarily. So it could be 51-49, it could be 60-40. It's just that your body's primarily, and how do you do that? I think we're starting to see this shift more towards intermittent fasting, right? So how do you provide tools that help with intermittent fasting? How do I eat low carb in such a way that I'm still in ketosis, but maybe I'm not 80% fat? Like I don't think people need to be 80% fat, especially people like you, people who are super active. I've never gone in my entire time of eating a ketogenic diet over 60% ever. Why? Because I'm burning through more than the average person. I don't need to. I'm higher protein than most people. Yeah, more fat than most people would think, but also you can get away with a little bit more carbohydrates. So I think I'm seeing the same thing. I think this idea of like hardcore keto, therapeutic, it still has its applications, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, like seizures, like all of those areas, you need to be a little bit more strict. For the mass market, the average consumer, it's important for them to keep in mind ketosis is a metabolic state, and there's multiple ways to achieve that. And I think if we can just push people towards becoming more carb conscious, that's a win. I think we live in a highly processed carbohydrate industry where people, your competitors, have products that are super high in sugar, super addictive, spike blood glucose, spike insulin levels, keep people's appetite ravenous. You guys come in as a complete disruptor and doing something good, a better for you product that isn't going to spike insulin, isn't going to spike glucose, and would help support people in eating less, right? And that's the ultimate goal.
Dude, totally. And I think what you said about keto products flooding the market, like it was such an unregulated term that like, hey, eat this bar, it's keto. Meanwhile, that bar's got 20 grams of carbs and you're going to subtract 10 grams for the erythritol. It's like, that math ain't mathing to me. I think that's been, it's confused people, it's overwhelmed people. But it's a shame because every time I do keto, I'm like, why don't I do this more often? I feel freaking phenomenal. and my body looks great. I'm strong. I just went on Sunday. We did a 10-mile run, like a slow run, and I ran with a handheld of ketones. Ketones an element, like salt and exogenous ketones. Felt great. Wasn't sore the next day. I don't get that sore on keto because there's so much protein. Like I'm eating a ton of protein, and I would love to be more educated so I can help my friends, like even my girlfriend, like Allison. It's like this idea of eating fat to lose weight, eating fat to get skinny. It's just, once people have that block, it's so hard to unwind those years of conditioning.
It is. And it's something that I think we've seen shift a little bit, but to your point, we need a lot more on it. And it needs to be simple, right? It needs to be something that we can talk about. Even one of the things Jacob, my business partner, and I talk about, we're in the process of actually rewriting another book. We wrote a book called The Ketogenic Bible. It needed to be written at the time, but like for the majority of people, it's too much. It is a textbook. Like it's everything on keto. We're in the process of writing a book right now called The Future is Ketones, because I truly believe that, again, if people are 51-49, more fueled on ketosis than they are on glucose and carbohydrates, we'd all be better off. And there's a lot of ways to achieve that. And I'm not saying a hardcore ketogenic diet needs to be that, but exogenous ketones, intermittent fasting, MCT oil, exercise, all of these things are things that we know are beneficial, but also fuel ketosis. Right?
Dude, totally. A question for you, educational question. So if somebody is on that 50-50 split, let's say they're eating carbs and maybe it's sourdough bread instead of Wonder Bread, or they're eating sweet potatoes or eating potato chips, whatever. Is it bad to have a certain level of simple carbs and then pile fat on top of that, like the MCT oils and the healthy mayonnaise and things like that?
So MCT is a little bit different, but typically you don't want to combine high amounts of carbohydrate, high amounts of fat in the same meal, right? That's a cheeseburger, right? Big Mac, a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of fat. You don't want to do those two things, because when you raise insulin, when you eat carbohydrates, you increase insulin. When you increase insulin, your body lowers the breakdown of fat. So that fat, if it's not getting broken down, what's going to happen? It's going to get stored. Now, MCT is a little unique because it doesn't get stored very easily. So that you might be able to get away with some carbohydrates and having some MCT, but typically you want to keep them separated. For example, one of the best strategies, even if people are not keto, is starting your day with a higher fat, higher protein breakfast or whatever you use to break your fast, lunch, higher fat, higher protein. And then if you want to have carbohydrates, have those later on in the day. That's a better approach than having high carb, high fat, high carb, high fat, balanced meal each time you eat,
Yeah, dude, I love that you went there. I just saw this recently. I think it's Glucose Goddess on Instagram. And she says when you have a high carb breakfast like oatmeal or pancakes or cereal or stuff that many people eat for breakfast, it throws off your blood glucose and your insulin. It spikes your insulin early in the day, and then it's kind of out of whack for the rest of the day. And that's why people get these afternoon crashes and these sugar highs and these lows. And it seems to be accelerated in the morning because that's when our cortisol levels are highest. The carbs sort of spike cortisol. Is that generally the right direction?
Yeah, we've actually done research in animals where if you give them a high fat, high protein breakfast versus a high carbohydrate breakfast, despite and then feed them the same calories the rest of the day, the animals that ate a higher fat, higher protein breakfast will be leaner, and they'll want to eat less than the group that had the higher carbohydrate breakfast, because you're kind of setting your metabolism up to, hey, I have that oatmeal, like Glucose Goddess said, it's spiking glucose, spiking insulin. And when you spike insulin, you're going to get that crash and you're going to be hungry very quick. And right now, one of the big initiatives that Jacob and I are talking a lot about is this concept of intermittent fasting. I think most people, which is crazy to think about, most people in the world today, their average eating window is 15 hours, which means they're only fasting for 9, right? Most people sleep 8. So there's an hour on either side total that they're not eating. So they're constantly snacking, constantly eating. 15% of those calories that people eat above what they're supposed to be eating come after 9 p.m. So a lot of people are having these. That's why you're starting to see some of these better for you companies trying to come out with like healthier ice creams and things like that. They're trying to minimize this because people are doing it. They're eating ice cream, cookies, brownies late at night. If we can just condense the eating window, it takes that out of the equation. So finding a way to not condense it too much, I think one meal a day is probably not beneficial for most people. But hey, if we're reasonable within an 8 to 10 hour eating window, perfectly fine.
Dude, so spot on. And it's such a good reminder too about what you said, like fat and protein is so much more satiating than carbs, right? I think there's more calories per gram of fat than there is in a carbohydrate. But like when I'm in keto, I'll have, I don't know, coffee with coconut cream, like a simple can of coconut cream that you buy at the grocery store for $4. Put 2 scoops of that into my coffee, and I'm not hungry until lunchtime. And
Right.
and I think you certainly eat less. But another crazy thing about keto is you can eat more if you want to because your body's burning it, as long as you're eating the right things. So
Exactly. One of the things you guys should look into, it would be super interesting for you to look at super coffee versus your competitor and look at fat metabolism and hunger over like the course of 3 hours. I think you would see a drastic difference between those two, just from a standpoint of you guys have protein and fats. They have basically all sugar inside of theirs. You're going to see a drastic difference. You guys would probably see an increase in fat metabolism. They would likely see a decrease on top of being hungrier after you consume it.
dude, that's such a good recommendation. Is that a study that we would have to run, or are there calculations based on our nutrition facts?
I probably recommend doing a study on it. You could do probably case studies on it, small scale stuff, but it would be super interesting. I think it could be powerful from a marketing standpoint if you had that data to go look at. We ran 5 people on this, 5 people on this. This is what we saw. It'd be interesting.
We got a lot to collab on, man. Let's get some videos. Let's get some educational videos out there for the people in a fun way that's not condemning or shaming or talking badly about it.
I love it, man. Let's do it. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on the low sugar or keto? I have a couple final questions for you, but I wanted to make sure we hit everything.
Oh, dude, look, we could talk all day about it, and I'm gonna hit you up with follow-ups after this, but let's get into it. What do you got? Let's do a little rapid
I call
fire.
it the final 4. So these are kind of quick, just more personal questions. What is your favorite snack and favorite meal?
Favorite snack is probably some mixed salted nuts, cashews lately, or some macadamia nuts in there, and sometimes almonds. Favorite meal is a clean wild sockeye salmon fillet, 8 to 12 ounces, sweet potato, usually baked in the oven with some butter on it, some grass-fed butter, and then either a rice or a green, like a sauteed spinach, something like that. Super clean, not really any dairy involved unless I'm putting butter on the potato. And I just feel so good. I sleep well. There's no indigestion. You wake up feeling good. So that's my go-to.
I love it. Favorite book of all time, and if you are reading one currently, what is it?
So favorite book of all time is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday.
Great.
Classic Stoic philosophy, sort of modernized for today's reader. Just teaches you how to deal with problems in any industry, which is amazing. And any really your personal life too. What I'm reading right now, or what I recently read this year, is called Smart Brevity. It's by the founders of Axios and Politico. It's a quick read, dude. It's how to say more with less words, how to get your messages to cut through in this world just filled with clutter, emails, presentations, texts, tweets, whatever. So I recommend that for everybody. Smart Brevity.
Love that. I'll have to check that one out. I haven't heard of that. It's great. What are you most excited about in your life right now?
Man, I'm excited for my life with Allison. We've been dating for 2 years, and I don't care if we get engaged or get married anytime soon, but like, she's my best friend. We challenge each other. We climb mountains. We run races. We give each other advice. We teach each other a lot of things. So this summer, she's from Montana. We're going to Whitefish for 4th of July. That's what I'm looking forward to.
That's incredible, brother. Congrats. I'm super happy for you. Last question is, what's one thing people can do today to improve their health?
walk, go for a walk, 30 minutes. I had a challenge in May. Alice and I did a challenge, 10,000 steps per day. And you don't realize how difficult that is until you look at your watch at 5 p.m. at night. You're like, damn, I'm only at 4,000 steps. So you have to be intentional about it. And you don't have to do 10,000 steps a day, but go for a 30-minute walk 4 or 5 days a week and see how you feel in 30 days from now.
Love it. And then where can people find more about you? How can we support you? Everything.
Yeah, check us out on Instagram. We're at Drink Super Coffee. My brothers and I are constantly posting on the Drink Super Coffee feed, so you can find all three of us there. And then on LinkedIn, I'm just at Jimmy DeCicco. But yeah, stay connected. Reach out. Hit us up. Thank you.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much. It has been an absolute honor. We are all rooting for you guys and your success. Love the brand you guys have built. We appreciate you. And I'll talk to you soon.
Ryan, thank you, brother. This was a blast.